Next on the agenda is public presentation comment period. Ms. Johnson, does anyone sign up?
Yes, sir. Mr. Gary Kushner.
I'm Gary Kushner at 1106 Fetchett Road, Bentonville. Good morning. Everybody had a good weekend, but unfortunately it's time to get back to work. I'm here to speak to the Crookenburg West issue that's on the consent agenda. Having this item in the consent agenda is not appropriate in my opinion. There are factors that should be openly considered in deciding this issue. But there must be some collective board agreement on it already to be on the consent agenda, if I understand what the consent agenda is. What discussion or consideration has already occurred for there to be general agreement that this rezoning application needs to be reviewed again by the planning commission? If there have been private talks between board members, the applicant, the county administrator, or other staff, how would the public be aware of that? I was under the impression that transparency was an important concept now. I can assure you that the citizens are very interested in their representatives' positions on this matter. And while I'm a lone speaker today, because this got scheduled done pretty quickly, I assure you I represent the sentiment of many, many of our citizens. Just because the staff suggests that the application amended might warrant additional review doesn't mean it should be rubber stamped. While I respect the people in the planning department and have previously acknowledged them from this podium, I personally feel that due to the sensitivity around this project, that they may be a bit paranoid. Neither the minimal amendment changes from the prior proposal nor changes in the state of Virginia rules on proffers specifically indicates the need for another planning commission review. The planning commission previously reviewed this request for rezoning from commercial to residential and a conditional use permit for planned residential development. In April, they recommended the applications be denied because it was inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. The commission commented that the affected area was best suited long range for commercial development and that the potential benefits of the proposed residential development could best be realized in other areas of the town and county more suited to it. The amended application deviates from the prior application basically in three ways. The number of planned residential units has been reduced from 1,025 to 750, all of which would be apartments now. The VDOT revenue sharing funding for road improvements is eliminated. And the previously proffered 26.8 acre parcel for public purposes no longer exists. Eliminating the revenue sharing for road improvements and the proffered public use acreage removal does not affect the reasons the Planning Commission previously recommended denying the applications. The approximate 25% reduction in proposed residential units is relatively insignificant, and the proposal is still for high-density residential development in a commercially zoned area that has significant traffic challenges already. This project has been hanging around like a flu that's lasted 14 days and is a source of significant concern and anxiety to the public. It needs to be resolved. Referring the amended application back to the Planning Commission will just be kicking this rusty can down the road. If the truth be known, the applicant, the county administrator, and some members of the board were disappointed in the Planning Commission's recommendation to deny the rezoning. And this is nothing more than an attempt to get an opportunity to get a different opinion from the Commission, more in line with their belief of what should happen in our community. It is well understood that the applicant's project is only viable with the availability of public water and sewer. The town's present policy is to only provide such service outside the town limits to commercial projects in the 345-22 corridor. That is evidenced by the April 2018 voluntary agreement. The town approving additional residential water sewer service outside the town limits now would be a contradiction to the present policy and open itself to losing control over such services by setting a precedent that other developers could use to force service for other residential projects outside the town limits in the future. If the town council denies access to public water sewer service to a high-density residential development beyond its borders, as it should, the project will get the death that it deserves. However, the Board of Supervisors, waiting to see if the town will support the application, unnecessarily delays resolution of the issue. Some might say that it implies an abdication of responsibility, but I'll leave that to others to judge. This board has a separate duty to all of its citizens, and it should act now. The important details of this project are well known. The Planning Commission has reviewed the relevant factors of the application and has recommended the rezoning request be denied. The amended application is not different enough to affect the prior Planning Commission's decision. All of the media articles to date referenced the public's opposition to this project. The objective elements of this project overwhelmingly confirm that it's not in the net best interest of the citizens of this county. The board should not delay this process any further. A public hearing before this body should be scheduled as soon as possible so it can be resolved. Thank you.
Ms. Mouse, anyone else?
No, sir.
About 5 years ago, we annexed 600 plus acres for a Front Royal Limited Partnership, where we thought housing in a small shopping center was going to go in. It's now 5 years and nothing's happened. We gave away all that acreage. Is anything ever going to happen there, or is the town going to annex the land back to the county if the county would accept it?
Honestly, we've been trying to talk to Front Royal Limited Partnership to see what is their obstacles. As also as part of one of the goals for town council that came out in August was to evaluate our subdivision ordinances, take a good hard look to see if there are any obstacles or hindrances that may be delaying development in town. So we're also trying to take an active approach as that as well.
Okay, because a lot of housing could go there.
I fully agree. We're fully aware that we do have a potential of, I think it's 1,900 homes that could be built in corporate limits. So we got to find out what is really impeding.
And how much would that come to just in tap fees?
Yeah, it would be a considerable amount.
We're talking millions. So we really need to get that rolling or give it back to the county so the county can do something with it.
And as I understand, we are working on a goal to try to address what is any obstacles that may be.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Thank you. Next, we move to the consent agenda. Other than item 4, is there anything else to be pulled or discussed?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to pull item 3 for discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd also like to pull item number 9 for discussion.
I'll second that if it changes being made.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we have the consent agenda to be approved with the exceptions of item 3, 4, and 9. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We'll start with,
4 was removed.
yeah, 4 was removed. Okay, so we will start with 3. Next, request referral to the Planning Commission application amendment for the Crooked Run West LLC.
In June of this year, the board held a work session on the proposed Crooked Run West applications for the property located behind the Crooked Run Shopping Center. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on these applications in April and had recommended denial to the Board of Supervisors. At this time, the applicant has revised their applications. They have submitted a revised statement of justification applications. They are in your packet. I put together just a short table with my initial review and the proposed changes. The old request was for 4 parcels totaling approximately 109 acres. The new request is for 1 parcel totaling 53 acres. They are now proposing to privately fund the transportation improvements instead of using the VDOT revenue sharing funding to complete a roadway from Crooked Run Boulevard to Rittenhour Hollow Road. The new proposed roadway does not connect to Rittenhour Hollow Road. They are now proposing up to 600 apartments and then 150 assisted living units. And the previous request was for 1,025 total units, which included townhomes and single-family dwellings. They are now proposing to leave the remainder of the acreage as is currently zoned, and they're requesting that the one land bay, the 53 acres, to go from commercial to suburban residential. Our planning staff felt like that our recommendation is for the applications to be referred back to the Planning Commission for review and public hearing. We felt that the changes were significant enough to require another planning review just due to transportation and access changes, the unit number changes, the zoning changes, the less residential, more commercial to remain, and no public land being dedicated now. Water consumption differences, proper changes that will come, and the properties involved. And I've sent the new application packet to all outside agencies for their review. And I'm happy to answer any questions. I would have this request on the Planning Commission's agenda for their meeting next week for authorization to advertise for a public hearing. And it is up to the board's discretion whether to send it back to the Planning Commission or not, because it is now at the board level.
I had a question. Well, you put together a lot of impacts on the previous, we had a work session that was kind of a moving target, that things were all moving around. You would do new impacts on?
I would do I would update my staff report, of course. And then they've submitted new revised community and environmental impact statements. Our fiscal impact model, we run that. It would still be the same numbers for the apartments and then the age restricted units, but the other 2 type of units would not be involved this time. And then they are the latest property. We have not received a revised property statement yet. We still have the last one that was issued that came from the work session that was talked about then. That one did designate 20% of the apartments as workforce housing.
This is our only commercial, right?
Well, we have, this is one area in the Route 345-22 corridor that's zoned commercial. I mean, there's other land in that corridor zoned commercial. And then there's some commercial around Linden. Those are our main places where the comp plan has kind of designated commercial in the future. Because that's kind of the only place in the infrastructure.
Well, could not this board just hold a public hearing?
Yes, ma'am.
The other commercials you talked about, like I said, it's along, I guess it's infill lots for one thing along 340, but in there like another 90 acres or so. It's kind of split.
Yes, sir. On the corner of Rockland Road
Right.
and Route 345-22, that I think is about 80 acres. The Cedarville Center, that was proposed for a shopping center back in the mid-2000s, and that's just kind of been sitting. That's kind of the other largest land bay, I'd say, for commercial.
Right.
And it was pointed out that we do have, our chairman pointed out, we do have property within the town that could be residential, and I personally think we all should have a commercial where this is.
But with this particular thing, they are maintaining 50-some acres or whatever of commercial.
Yes, sir. It's approximately, I think, 50 acres of commercial and then 50 acres of agricultural. stays in the back, and then the 53-acre land bay is what they're proposing to rezone from commercial to suburban residential.
And yes, there are a number of proposed houses planned for the town, within town, but I don't believe there's been one platted off at this time. Like Mr. Murray said, it's been 5 years of the Front Royal Limited Partnership, and so my understanding at this point, things can change, that there are none of those proposed dwellings for apartments, or I don't know, they're townhouse, or they're all single dwelling.
It's my understanding they're single-family dwellings.
I'm sorry?
It's my understanding there's single-family dwellings proposed in that area.
One more question, please. One more question. Okay, if we decided that this board could hold the hearing, could you get all the information for this board to hold a public hearing? It would still, what would be the difference? And what you would have to do for us?
Well, it would just be, I would still receive all agency comments back. It really would just be the planning staff doing the review instead of the planning commission. The planning, when we rely on the planning commission because they kind of vet the whole applications that come through for something of this size, but I felt just the transportation change now only having one access in and then the road alignment changing was a significant change. But like I said, it's up to the board.
But it's our comprehensive plan hasn't changed. It's still not in accordance with our current comprehensive plan.
That's right. They're still requesting that amendment. That's
right.
That's one of the 3 applications.
Does anyone else have anything?
Question.
Mr. Fox?
There's a road and a bridge that's going to be involved. Will they be built to state standards or?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Anyone else have anything?
Is there any proposed money coming from the state in the road project?
With this new application, no, sir. With the revised application, they're proposing to privately fund the road improvements.
Anyone else? If not,
I just don't, I mean, I don't see where it hurts anything by having the planning commission look at it one more time, because I think there are significant changes with this. And then also give the opportunity for the public to have even more comment. That's just my feeling.
If I may, at a risk of having some misunderstanding here, but I had proposed with the Shannon Farms POSF, I wanted to have the planning commission weigh in, and now subsequently, now I am hearing from some constituents that were unaware. And whenever you have a planning commission gets reported by the press, people become aware. Generally, I think that's a good idea.
does anyone else have anything? If not, I'll have a couple comments. One, talking with Mayor Teacher, he said if that project went through the town, just in water and sewer hookups is looking at roughly $8 million plus in revenue. But if it's going to be a commercial site, could it be a transfer steam plant? That's a commercial endeavor that almost happened next door to Innovate Foods X amount of years ago. So is that considered commercial, something like that?
Any kind of, that sounds like more of an industrial type use. I think for the commercial, they've proposed more neighborhood commercial uses, hotels, maybe office park. I'm not exactly sure what the latest commercial uses are, because they had cut back to the 7 acres. That was going to be more neighborhood uses, but with keeping the 50 acres. Of course, we would like to see more restaurants and that nature in this area.
Right now, it shows that we don't have clarity on what's happening. It looks like, I guess, I'm not doing anything negative in your direction, but it looks like the group that want to develop haven't finished putting the horse before the cart. They're still running with the cart before the horse. And there's a lot of clarity that has to be done. It needs to be understood. It has to be black and white, not I guess, or we're waiting on, you're a week out looking at a planning commission meeting, and there's a lot of questions to be answered. I don't think there should be a meeting till all questions are at least answered, and then move forward however we have to.
Can I make a motion?
Yes, you may.
May I make a motion? I move that the Board of Supervisors itself hold the rezoning, hold the meeting on this revision of this request.
Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, I think proper motion should be to advertise for a public hearing.
We have a title.
Board of Supervisors would advertise for a public
I
hearing.
amend my motion that this board advertise for a public hearing on this issue for the County Board of Supervisors. Thank you.
Great date.
The day, that's when the planning commission can get it ready for us.
I second.
Wait, you need to planning staff.
For planning staff, I'm sorry.
Do we need to set a deadline, like 30 days out?
I mean,
Is that enough time?
But I just want to get agency comments back. That's the most important. Staff, we can do our review, but that's the most important.
we need to comment, you would need them back for a planning commission meeting too, for,
Yeah, I would want them back for any public hearing.
do we need to set it in?
I think we need to have the planning department tell us the date when they're ready and have all documents ready. And if it takes a little more time, it takes a little more time, but let's have clarity. We have enough commotion in this community with people misinformed and not understanding, and we don't need to fan the fires. And that's what would happen if we did something and didn't have all facts and figures right. So I would say let the planning commission tell us when they have all questions answered, and then staff, and then have us schedule the meeting. If we're going to schedule, then if everything's presented, and if we're going to chair it or hold the meeting, then I think we should set the date once we're presented with all the information.
If you went back to the planning commission on the 11th, and they had that option to table it if they don't have all the information. So I don't still feel like it'd be best to go back to the planning commission and let them look at it, since there has been significant changes. Otherwise, we just take a vote right now.
Yeah.
Okay, and the motion is?
Is it also possible, if I recall, there was it was a joint meeting between the planning commission and our board? Didn't we have a joint meeting the first time?
A very long time ago. That was back in January, I think. That was right before, or just as the applications were originally submitted. And then it was to the planning commission solely, and they had their public hearing in April. And then they recommended denial, then it moved to the Board of Supervisors, held a work session at the request of the applicant in June. And that was when they talked about their revised proffers. And then it's just been, they've been revising their traffic impact analysis since then. And now they've resubmitted new revised applications.
But, I mean, I'm just, this isn't saying what I'm for or against or whatever, but I would like to hear my representative, which is Ralph Rinaldi, I'd like to hear him weigh in and hear his thoughts, so that's going to be my concern.
Okay, we have a motion.
A motion.
And we have a second, Mr. Fox.
Okay.
What's the motion again?
For the Board of Supervisors to hold a rezoning conditional use permit on comprehensive amendment for this Crooked Run project at whatever date. Well, after the
At a date to be determined.
date to be determined by the planning staff.
so we have a motion, we have a second. Let's have a roll call on this.
Mr. Carter?
No.
Ms. Gladys?
Aye.
Mr. Sheridan?
Aye.
Mr. Sager?
No.
Mr. Fox?
Okay, the ayes have it.